We know November was a fantastic month for the majority of the stock market, but that's in the past. We want to look to the future and talk about where you can make some money going forward, and we're going to focus on ETFs. That is the focus of this Trading Nation. I'm Brian Sullivan. We've got Craig Johnson of Piper Jaffray, Zach Karabell of Envestnet as your Trading Nation team. Craig, I'm going to begin with you. If you had to pick an ETF for December and the future after that, what would you do?
Well, Brian, we brought in two, not just one, but two. So we're thinking about this in terms of a pair trade. And this really mirrors a lot of the work that we're doing and what we're saying to clients. So we do like what we're seeing with the energy sector. So if you take a look at the XLE, you'll see that this is an index that has started to break out. It's starting to trend higher. We think there's a decent move here, probably up toward $80 on the XLE. Now, conversely, if you look at the utility sector chart, it is starting to roll over. It's putting in some lower lows and lower highs in here. We think there's probably about 6 to 8% downside here in that particular ETF, back to that longer-term uptrend support line we drew there on the chart. And we think there's going to be a continual pressure to buy offense and kind of pro-cyclical type names, and there's going to be a waning of money coming out of these utilities as that bond proxy trade is really coming off from our perspective.
Utilities? I would have never guessed. Zach Karabell.
To the downside, Brian.
The shorts. Okay, I want to be clear. That's so. But you recommend you can't short an ETF.
You could sell the ETF is what we'd actually recommend doing. I know a lot of investors have been long the traditional bond type proxy trades, and if you own those, I'd be selling those and I'd be buying the energy ETF in its place.
You think with these years I would have been able to hear a little bit better. Craig Johnson, thank you very much. So sell the ETF, the XLU, if you own it. Zach Karabell, is there one that you would buy?
There is, and I will tell you in a moment, but I do want the caveat of I am increasingly skeptical or cautious about ETFs as a generalized way to invest, because I think a lot of investors have poured into these. There's been a lot of industry pressure about fees that have pushed people away from individual stocks and actively managed funds, much of which is constructive, but a lot of which is kind of dumbing down investing in a way that I think is going to be counterproductive and problematic for a lot of ETFs, particularly bond ETFs. That said, I do like the Mexico ETF, EWW, partly because it's sold off, I guess, 20% in the wake of Trump's victory and the anticipation of a whole lot of harm coming to U.S. Mexico and therefore also domestic Mexican peso strength, domestic Mexican industry. There too, that ETF is heavily weighted toward a few large cap stocks, the kind of the Carlos Slim Elu stocks, the multi-billionaire.
America Movil, the mobile company. Yeah.
Which is a huge portion of that ETF. So I think, even there, it's not as if you're investing in a hugely diversified Mexico space. You're kind of hoping that these few leading names are going to lead the way, just like with XLE, which was mentioned before. A lot of that is ExxonMobil, Chevron, you name it. So just be aware of what it is you're buying. You're not necessarily buying this diversified exposure.
Yeah, it's a good lesson. Know what you own always. A lot of ETFs have either A, very misleading names, or B, very heavily weighted to just a couple of stocks. So Craig Johnson says sell the XLU if you own it. Buy the Mexican ETF, although be careful of ETFs in general, he says Zach Karabell. We'll do another segment on that as well, Zach. Thank you, Craig. Thank you. Cool. Folks, thank you for watching Trading Nation. I'm Brian Sullivan. We'll see you next time.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.